Where do you find purpose in the astrology chart? I'll give you a hint. It's not the North Node. In this video, we're talking about where in your astrology chart you can find the point that represents your highest potential and why people think this is your North Node, but it really isn't. So for those of you who don't know, I'm talking about the Midheaven. Before we get into why the Midheaven is the place you want to look if you're trying to be your best self and rise to your highest potential, we want to talk about, first of all, why it's not the North Node and why the North Node sort of gets put into this category. The North Node in evolutionary astrology is the point that represents what we're heading toward. It is our patterns that we're here to learn. The North Node doesn't necessarily get us further in our public life, our ambitions, our highest potential in the sense of who we want to become professionally or what we want to be known for, because the North Node isn't about that. The North Node is more about our soul's lessons, our spiritual lessons, and our own happiness. So if you follow your North Node, you might not get any further professionally. You might not find the right path, but you may feel happy. And this is a misconception that the North Node in the natal chart in astrology represents our path. It does not represent your path. It represents the thing, the energy to embody to be your highest self. So my North Node is in Taurus. So for me, based on this interpretation, the evolutionary interpretation, in order to be my highest self, I need to enjoy my life. I need to work for and be independently purchase, the things that I want in life and move away from that South Node Scorpio energy of merging with other more powerful people and that feeling that I don't have my own power. So that's that. That is why the North Node can be sort of grouped into this sort of keyword of purpose, because, when we think of purpose, we want the whole thing. We don't just want the piece of paper that says we can do something. We don't just want the skills. We also want the feeling like life is meaningful. So the North Node can make us happy. So if you're trying to find happiness, do that North Node stuff. And that's actually what I tell people when they're not sure if they're following their North Node correctly, when they're new to astrology, is, does it make you happy? If it makes you happy and you feel a wholeness, and a completion within you when you're doing that thing, or when you do that thing more often, then you're likely following your North Node. So now, then where do you find your purpose in the chart? That is the Midheaven. And the reason the Midheaven is more synonymous with the word purpose, in my opinion, is because it gives us something to rise up to. And the thing about the Midheaven is it still doesn't necessarily tell us our life direction, but it's much closer because the Midheaven is the point at the top of the chart. It often will rule the 10th house. In a lot of house systems, it is the ruler of the 10th house. It's the point, like in Placidus, on the cusp of the 10th house. But in, for example, whole sign, you're going to find the Midheaven could be there, could be in the 10th house or the 9th house or the 11th house usually. Either way, your Midheaven is the thing that in professional life, you're probably going to move toward. It is also a point that just kind of tells you what your career might be. And I want to give an example and talk a little bit more about it instead of just, do your Midheaven, because people get confused about this. And I'm going to tell you one of the things that can cause confusion when it comes to following your Midheaven, and that is the house placement of the Midheaven ruler. If I just lost you, I'm going to explain what this means. Every sign has a planet that rules it. It's like the planet that goes with it. So we're going to talk about the Leo Midheaven. The sun is the planet. It's actually technically a luminary, but the sun rules Leo. So when we're looking at anything related to career in a person's chart who has their Midheaven in the sign of Leo, we're going to then go look immediately, where is the sun? What house is it in? So this is why sometimes my Leo Midheavens don't always relate to that Midheaven meaning of gaining attention, because if your sun, which is the planet that rules that Midheaven, is in a house that's more private, you are not going to want attention. If you are a Leo midheaven with the sun in the 12th house, for example, you would much, much, much rather work behind the scenes and stay out of the limelight. So this can cause confusion because you're like, wait, why is my midheaven Leo if I hate attention? I'm supposed to go get attention? Not necessarily. With people with a Leo midheaven and their sun in the 12th, oftentimes I find these are like artists or writers, people who are creating something and they're going to put their work in the limelight, but they are not going to be in the limelight. So like artists or like people who, I don't know, write movie scripts or deal with the entertainment industry in any way. But they are not the one, again, in the spotlight. They might be the one setting up the stage or depending on a lot of other things in the chart, just working in quietude, working privately on things that will end up being seen by other people is sort of the indication of that. So let's say you have your midheaven in Leo and your sun's down in the 4th house. This is another very, very private place in the chart. So this might be someone who does something like a podcast from home, where they do embody that Leo energy of being seen and their work being showcased, but it's not in a public way. They may also do real estate. Sometimes people with their midheaven ruler in the 4th house will do real estate. Other times, we'll have to look at other planets in the 4th house or the 10th house to get a clear idea. But the point here is that someone with their sun a Leo midheaven with their sun in the 4th house probably are not going to want to be on stage and have those typical Leo qualities. They're going to be seen in a different way. And having the sun in the 4th house tends to not be as visible. If they have like their sun in the 8th house, this is another house where the energy isn't invisible. It just kind of tends to go to other people instead of themselves. So it's like people with sun in the 8th house, 4th house, or 12th house are the most likely to not be recognized as easily for the work they do or not be seen. So how do you combine that Leo midheaven? Again, it's maybe the sun in the 8th house, they partner up with someone and that person is in the limelight, so this would be someone who works really, really closely with someone else who is the one who gets all the attention. And usually when someone has their sun in the 4th or the 8th or the 12th, they don't really want the attention anyway. Now, there are ways to work with this and to remedy it and to boost your sun a little bit. So don't feel like you're stuck like this, but this is just one example of how in order to really understand your midheaven, you need to know all these little pieces so you don't interpret it the wrong way. The midheaven, because it represents our legacy and what we want to leave behind, this is part of the reason why this particular point in the chart tends to be more felt as like the potential that we have in life, because a lot of us, when we think of our highest potential, we're not thinking of us sitting on a sofa, looking out the window, watching the sunrise, right? Like that might be a nice thing to do if you're happy and you're enjoying your life. But when we think of our highest potential, there's sort of the built-in hero's journey of what challenge we have to overcome and how we can break through that challenge. And a lot of times those things are seen in our professional life, in our career, in our role in the world, even if it isn't our job, the person we become known for. So that is why your midheaven is important. And I have videos on each midheaven if you want to check those out. And right now readings are on sale. Actually, it's the last day of my sale on private readings. So you can get 50% off on a Zoom call if you book with me. I have the 1 hour or 1.5 hour. It's a great way to understand more deeply what your chart really says about you. So we can look at your ideal career. As far as what you want to do, we can look at why you're not happy in the career you're in. We can see whether it's aligned or not. And we can also look at some of the energies you're in as far as how to work with the phase you're in. Are you in a phase where you're reaching goals and you need to kind of step up to that career responsibility? Or are you in a more quiet phase where you're planting the seeds? We can see all that and more just by looking at your chart and the transits. So you can click the link below to book with me. And let me know in a comment below if you have more questions about your destiny, your highest potential, how to follow your midheaven or your north node, or any other topic like this. I always love hearing from you guys, and I will see you all in the next video.